Hello, and welcome to Tuesday Talks with Mom. I'm Tera Myers, and I am so glad you're here. As part of Moms on a Mission, we're empowering moms across the country to stand up and advocate for their children's educational freedom. As a mom of an adult son with Down syndrome, I've walked this road, navigating the school system and fighting for the right to choose the best education for my child. And now I'm here to share that journey with you. Every 2 weeks, we'll sit down with different moms from around the country and provide thoughtful advice and share our experiences. Together, we're building a community of moms who are finding their voices, taking action, and making a difference. Welcome to Tuesday Talks with Mom. Hey, moms, how are you tonight?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm so glad we could all be on here together to answer questions by all the other moms and dads out there that decided to join us, or maybe even by some that weren't able to be on tonight, but decided to submit questions for us to try and help answer. So, as we get started, for those of you that are watching, if something pops into your head and you're like, hey, I have a question, feel free to submit your questions and we'll run them across the screen and across the episode as we go along. If by chance we don't get to your question today, don't worry. We'll save them and we'll either respond to them separately or we'll save them for our next episode. Always know that you can submit your questions to us at any time by going to the website or to the Facebook page and typing them in there, and we'll be sure to get back with you. So let's get started, ladies. Go ahead, Paul. If you've got some questions that have been submitted for us, we'll be more than happy to get started. Okay, Monique says, how can I get my grandson to remember to retain his spelling words? We go over them, rewrite them 5 times each a day, and it's not helping. Does anyone want to tackle this one ahead of time before I get started on it? Clarice, you're nodding your head.
Yes. Hi, Monique. How are you? So the first thing I would like to ask you a couple of questions. I know you probably can't answer them, but if you are on, maybe you can answer them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just put these questions to you as some things for you to consider or to ask the teacher who work with your grandson. Um, what it sounds like is that your grandson is having some trouble with word recognition. And so a lot of schools call that sight words. However, it's much deeper than that. I'll try to break it down very briefly. So, word recognition is one of the foundational skills that all children need to be successful readers, writers, and spellers. So, it has a tie to spelling. If your grandson is having problems retaining the words he's spelling, it might be due to the fact that he has some encoding and decoding issues. So, we want to make sure that he has letter sound recognition and phonemic awareness skills down, where he knows where the letters correspond with the sounds, which is phonics, and then he knows how to break apart the words. So if he doesn't know how to do that and doesn't know how to blend the words, then when it comes to remembering and retaining the spelling words, that's where he's having his struggles, if that makes sense. So those are the things that I would ask, either his mom or dad, if you're the primary guardian, and or the school, just to see where he is in his overall reading skills. And if he is having some struggles with that, that's where I would start, because that's going to build up to him being able to retain the spelling words that you're trying to get him to remember. That would be my
Okay.
answer.
Becki, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't, because my wheelhouse has been 7th and 8th grade, and by 7th and 8th grade, my school didn't do spelling anymore. But as a parent, I would say that I very much appreciate Clarice's guidance and advice, because that sounds like a good plan going forward to get that information.
Love it. Well, I also have a few little things that I'll add to what Clarice had to say. I think it's a fabulous place to start if you don't think that they may be able to actually decode and actually retain that. I had one particular student really struggle with spelling. And so we used a ton. We didn't have any need in that area, was able to understand everything, but just really had a hard time remembering. So we used a bunch of different techniques. Um, we applied gaming when we were working on trying to remember those spelling words, adding little games to it, taking them, writing out on little pieces of paper and cutting them apart and playing like a little race game on trying to put the letters back together, starting off first with an original card of the actual word itself written down, and then trying to match the letters and then put it all together. We worked on using some kinesthetic ways to deal with spelling those words, like using magnetic letters on the refrigerator, using shaving cream to trace the words into that. My kids love little dry erase boards with dry erase markers, writing them in. I'd leave some of the letters out, adding the letters back in and having them the letters. Play-Doh. I know that even as my kids at the upper elementary, I took Play-Doh and we rolled those letters out. And that was really good for my son who had low tone, because he was able to actually exercise those hand and finger muscles for when it came to actually writing the spelling words. I know that you had mentioned already the tracing them, writing them out 5 times. Forever, that's what they told us to do for my son, and it never clicked. He just was not able. It was like I could write those 150 times and he would just be exhausted. But by actually building the letters, that worked immensely. Finger painting, that was another one that we used, lots of finger paint. So for those younger elementary grades, that's what we would do. I would have them go on word hunts for their spelling words after we read them, and we practiced writing them, and we practiced putting them together, making little puzzles out of them. Then I would find different ways to find the words. Look for them in books, look for them. I would always go and get a newspaper and the highlighter. My girls love those highlighters, but anything that I could to try to get them to retain the spelling words. And then I would give them little spelling tests, here at home while getting ready for that. And usually that helped a lot. My son, I would have to break his spelling word list down into smaller chunks because he was not able to do the 20 words that the kids in the second grade were able to do all at one time. So we do sections of 3 to 5 at a time. So those are some of the tips and techniques that I had for using for my kids. Combine that with Clarice's, you know, strategies, and I think you're going to be able to find some solutions in there. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you. Does anybody else have another question?
Yes, we do have a question, and it is from Renee.
Okay. What recommendations, would you suggest for parents working 12-hour shifts and not having time to help with schoolwork? Do any of you have a suggestion on that before I jump in?
Well, I would first off say, Renee, kudos to you, mom, for, taking care of your family, working 12-hour shifts, but still, having enough wherewithal within you, because moms, we do it all,
Yep.
to even put this question up. So number
Yes.
one, I want to commend you for that, and just tell you, um, just keep plugging away, and hopefully one day you don't have to work 12 hours. So we're praying for that for you, so that you get more time with your kids, which I know you want. Um, so, what would I tell you to do in regards to not having time to help with schoolwork? Well, that's where I have a village concept where it takes you know all of us to help each other with our babies. And one, I would find out if the schools have any after school tutorial programs or support programs that can help with that. I know the Girls and Boys Club do, YMCA. I don't know how familiar you are with them. And then I would look at my circle of a sphere of people that are around me and see how we could work together. Like, you have a shift one day, they have a shift another day, based on the way that you guys work, and see if that would be a way to do that. There's a lot of online hybrid models that will assist with helping your kids with their homework online. So I think Whitney Brock just put up tutorial YouTube after school programming. So there's a lots of ways to help support you while you do what you can to take care of your family, and we'd be happy to provide you some more referrals if the ones that we just suggested don't help. But I think you'll find a lot of rich information out there.
I love it. I love it. And I would recommend also, Renee, talk to your teachers. I love the fact, like Clarice said, that you were willing to put this out there, but oftentimes the teachers are so willing to come alongside you, like Clarice said, in that village format, but to let you know, hey, there are some teachers that come in early, that stay late, or that are willing to provide those extra supports for your student. Also, check with National Honor Society students at the school, maybe that are looking for ways that they can be of help. Um, just as another resource, like what Clarice mentioned, but I had students that even came into our classroom and helped during the school day, during their study hours, came into our classroom and helped out students with their reading, helped them during their study hall time with math. So there's a lot of different resources out there that you just around you that maybe you're just not aware of. But good job in asking the question, because nobody wants to be doing this alone, and you're not
Exactly.
alone. We're
Exactly.
here, your neighbors. When Clarice said the village, I was thinking, you know what about, like, we have an older gentleman living right next door who goes up to the elementary school, but I know if I would have needed help and I would have went next door and knocked on the door, he would have been happy to help with homework for my kids. So you just never quite know who's waiting to have something to do. They just don't know what your need is.
And making that connection.
Yes.
Yeah, when I was teaching, and my son was in junior high, he had an activity practice at 5 o'clock in the morning, and so we would leave at 4:30 to get there, and I would be there at 5 o'clock. Of course, he's doing his thing, but that did allow me as a teacher. If students showed up at 6 o'clock for extra help, like, I'm there, I've been there, I've had my coffee, I am ready to help. So I think it also depends on the age of the students. Again, thinking from the perspective of a junior high school teacher, peer tutoring, it can be very powerful. And
Yes.
and sometimes, the kids that get math may need help with English, and the kids that are good writers may need help with science. So making those connections can be pretty powerful.
I love it.
I would agree.
Yes. Paul, do we have any more questions?
Yes, we do. We have a question from Waldrika, and hopefully we have her pronunciation correct.
Great. Go ahead, Clarice, if you want to read this one.
How do you ensure support for kids moving away for college with seeming overbearing support? So, if I'm understanding you right, Waldrika, you're saying, are you a mama bear? Is that what I'm picking up? And so you want to give them support, but not be perceived as being overbearing. And girl, I get you, because I'm that mama too. Okay. And my son went away to college in 2020 during COVID, and I was a mess. And so, as being a mama bear, but you kind of got to back up. I think one of the first things that I would say to you is trust your parenting. You know the type of child that you raised. And now is the time for you to lessen the rope. I didn't say let go entirely, but lessen it and allow your kids to explore college and experience it. Now, you probably will move from that of parent uh, telling and determining to advising strongly sometimes, but more of an advisory role for them um, on the things that you want to give them liberty on, and then the things that you really know that this is what they should do. You just be very forthright with them on that. But I think just letting your parenting speak for itself in the environment they're in now in college, and allowing them that room to grow and experience a level of freedom that they haven't had, and then adjusting as they grow into that particular transition. I would also say that if there's supports, like if your kids need accommodations for learning disabilities or any type of accommodation they need to help them become successful in college, make sure that you reach out to see if they have a disability arm or if they have an accommodation support academic services there on the college campus, and make sure that your children understand that needing help is not limiting, nor is it something that they should be ashamed of, but it's also empowering. That's what I told my kids. And one of the things I always used to tell them is that, the question that you have, there's probably two or three other kids at minimum in the class that want to know the same thing. So those would be my responses to what Waldrika said. Anybody else have anything else to add to my long list?
Well, I do. When my youngest went off to college, she did not have a formal diagnosis, but I knew, as well as her high school teachers and the professors that had her, she took some college classes while she was in high school. They all knew that she had a processing delay and it affected her learning. So when she went off to college, the testing was going to be a challenge. And I said to her, you have a choice to make here. I am a parent and student advocate. I am more than happy to go marching in there and just telling them the what for and telling them what you need. However, they don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you. It's your responsibility. It's time that you advocate for yourself. And we've trained you on that and shown you how to do that. And she was really worried because she didn't have any formal testing. However, most college campuses have a counseling department as well as a student services department that will test them and use prior knowledge to determine whether or not they need supports. And so she did, with much prodding, like Clarice said. I had to prod her to say, get on in there, pull on your big girl pants and get in there and tell them what you need. And they tried to give her the what for. And I said, again, I can go in there. I can do it, but you're not going to want me to. And they're not going to be happy that I did do it. And, I'll tell you, she grew up a lot that first year by having to advocate for herself. They tried several times to not give her testing accommodations, and she continued to go in and forge ahead. So if you trust your parenting, like Clarice already mentioned, and you trust the skills that you have set forth for your child, you'll be just amazed. It's like you get your little mama award by watching them go and spread their wings and fly when you really need them to. And I'll tell you, my daughter did a good job and successfully advocated for herself and did well. So I think your child will do the same. Becki, you have anything else that you want to add, or are we good on that one?
Self-advocacy is such a powerful skill to have. And when you allow your kids to speak for themselves, that just makes it more real, and it puts a face to what the challenge is. And our son chose not to go to college. He went into the workforce, and he currently still lives with us, which is fine. But we have had that fine line of wanting to hang on and lessening the grip. And
Yes.
it's challenging, but it's important to remember that we're not alone in how we feel as moms. And when we have trained our children, when we have brought them up, when we have set the expectations for their behaviors and for whatever else they do in life, I think we can kind of have some room to breathe, that it's going to be okay. We just need to give them their space to figure it out while they spread their wings.
I love it. I love it. Paul, do you have any other questions for us this evening?
Yes, we do. We have more questions for moms.
All right.
Becki, you want to read this one?
Yeah, I'll take this one.
Okay.
What are some parent-oriented barriers when it comes to their children receiving services, and how can those barriers be broken down? That is a really great question. I'll answer as a teacher from what my experience was for 27 years. We would see students who were struggling with skills, And, being in the classroom, we would, talk to the parents, talk to, the special ed people and say, maybe we need to look into some testing, some evaluations. And there are some parents that are concerned about labels, and they do not want their child to be labeled special ed. And some parents don't realize that any student that receives education outside of the general education bubble, and this includes children that are gifted, they have individualized education plans, and it's there to help these students overcome whatever challenges they may have in the classroom, whether it is academics or social or whatever. But there are some parents that are worried that their children are going to be put in a box, or they're going to be labeled and carry that label for the rest of their lives. And I think we as moms need to remember what's in the best interest of our kids' education. Allowing for these services, is this going to help our students move forward and gain necessary skills? And if the answer is yes, we have to put our feelings of labels to the side, because we have to act in the best interest of our kids.
And I would add to what Becky is saying. I think what Becky is saying is great. And I also would say that, as parents, thinking about the best interests of our kids, you do worry about the labels, like Becky said, and I think that that's something that you need to pause and actually, reflect upon why that's bothering you, what your concerns are, and have a valid conversation about why you're reserved or a little, taken aback about adding another layer to your children. That was one of the things that I struggled with, is my daughter. And then, bullying happens, and so kids that are in special education and they have to get pulled out of the classroom. And so I know a lot of times the least restrictive environment is what most public schools, under the IDEA, are striving to do, is to make sure that they educate most students in the same population as everybody else, to the best of their ability. But there are some times when that environment just cannot happen with what services that the kids need. So I get that, and I totally understand your concern. And as a valid member of that individualized education plan, that IEP team, you as a parent are a member of that. And that is a valid conversation to have, and a conversation to discuss what can we all do as part of this team to ensure that my child's label is not the defining uh, mechanism to determine their social and emotional well-being in school, their self-identity, and the skills that they're getting from those services. That's what I would say.
And I would also add to that, to kind of flip the switch a little bit on the term label a little bit, to really make sure that while you're addressing those services, while you're addressing that program that you're developing for the student based upon whatever it is that they need, that you really keep it student centered and encourage discussion on the strengths of the student and what kind of supports could help um,
Mhm.
highlight or really put emphasis on the student's strength, to how we're trying to minimize any form of deficit or any type of shortcomings that maybe the student has. I think sometimes, at least my experience, I'll just say that, was that so much focus wanted to be on the negativity. So much focus
Mhm.
wanted to be on, well, he has this diagnosis. Well, I don't really care. That diagnosis doesn't define him. He does have
Exactly.
some shortcomings, but we really need to focus on what he is capable of, or in my daughter's case, all the things that can happen, but what can we do to eradicate this issue or provide him with a stair step to climb above and beyond this issue, and keep the focus there, because then people don't get hung up. One time an administrator called my son a Downs kid.
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't sure that he was ever going to be able to speak again after that meeting, but I did remain out of an orange jumpsuit. So that was good because I was so floored because I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He is a child. He's an individual that happens to have an extra chromosome, which happens to mean he has Down syndrome. He has that. However, that is not who he is. So keep the labels as shortlisted as possible. And remember that just a diagnosis does not define a person, and that the
Mhm.
person first, and there's so many strengths. I mean, kids have so many things that we can identify them by, as opposed to an educational acronym or an educational
Mhm.
diagnosis or a label. So, parents, don't let your ego or your pride get in the way, but also remember to advocate well for your child when it comes to ways to get them services and supports to be their very, very best. And no one is going to do it better than you, mom
Mhm.
or dad or grandma.
Mhm.
So, do we have any more, Paul? Any more
Yes, we
questions?
do. And the next question actually has to do with diagnosis.
Okay. Go ahead, Clarice. You want to read that one?
What's it like to get a diagnosis, and what's it like to get the results of evaluations? Two things that I happen to know a lot about because I work with families all the time. They get a diagnosis, and also we do some screening at our tutoring center for children who are dyslexic. So we give out screening evaluations all the time. What I would say, one, I have knowledge of it as being a parent who got the diagnosis of dyslexia for my daughter. And I had to hear that for the first time. I already knew, though. As parents, I think you know what's happening with your kids. You may not know what it is exactly, but you know something is happening. So I think a diagnosis can be relieving to some
Mhm.
extent because now you have a why to what's happening with your child, and then it can also floor you, depending upon what the diagnosis is, and just hearing that for the first time, because we all come in to parenthood with all these dreams and aspirations for our children, and we want our children to have the best opportunities and the best life possible. And so when challenges arise, no matter what it is, doesn't change how you feel about your kids. It's just that you have to deal with the initial hearing of it, and sometimes that's not easy. And so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that isn't something that doesn't happen. And so I think you have to give yourself grace when you
Yes.
get a diagnosis that takes you back or floors you or seems to be um, you know just heartbreaking. And then once you've had full time, that includes the whole family, because it's not only just you, it's the dad, it's the siblings, it's those that are around the child, depending upon what the diagnosis is. And then I think you go from emotions to advocacy,
Mhm.
and you start to learn and to make yourself knowledgeable about what that diagnosis is and isn't, and ensuring that you lead with the lens of, like Tara said in the last question, that the label does not define your child. And I don't care what label it is, whether it's a learning disability, a physical, emotional, or mental disability, it is just a piece of the bigger puzzle of what happens to be your child. And we put it in that box where it belongs, and it does not define them. And then you set the standard with your child on what happens for them, and what a full life for them looks like, and go from there. That's what
Yes.
I would say.
Yes.
I think that that's great. And the only thing that I want to add is getting the results of the evaluations. And I think you said this, but it's relief. It was always relief to me, because to me it was the key to defining what resources we needed to help him become successful, to help get from point A to point B. Was okay. Now that we know where we're having shortcomings or having difficulties, now we know what we need to put in place to get, as I used to say, get the oars to that rowboat so we could get to the other side.
Mhm.
So I think that's crucial for parents. So thank you. I appreciate that. Well, that's all we have time for this evening. I thank you all for joining us. If you have more questions and you would like to submit them, please feel free to do so, and we will follow up with them in another episode. And we look forward to having you join us back on May the 13th for our upcoming episode as well. Thanks so much for joining us.